kicking off a fresh bid for secession. On Thursday, the regional president of Catalonia, Artur Mas, joined forces with leaders from across the political spectrum to back a pro-independence vote in the upcoming parliamentary elections.
Together we have done everything in our power to change this status quo and to lead Catalonia to a real change. A positive one, written with capital letters, to become a country like all our neighbours in Europe.
Polls show that the pro-independence parties are on track to win a majority on September 27th, even if they also show that only around half of voters are in favor of Catalonia's independence. Artur Mas says he needs at least 68 of the 135 seats to push through his 18-month plan in establishing a Catalonian constitution. Madrid is staunchly against secession and blocked Catalonia from holding a formal referendum, forcing separatists to use the election as a proxy vote on independence. And they aren't the only ones that fear what losing the industry-rich northeastern region could do to Spain's already fragile economy, let alone its national identity.
Nobody is going to convert us into foreigners. Let's stand up to them by defending all the men and women of Catalonia who, like us, are proud to belong to Spain.
On Thursday, in an attempt to find a compromise, Spain's foreign minister broached the idea of talking about constitutional reforms and giving Catalonia more fiscal powers.
We're joined now by Carlos Mascarell Vilar, political analyst who joins us from Barcelona to try and explain what's going on in the region of Catalonia, why the region wants to secede, and whether the local leaders have a chance at actually separating Catalonia from the rest of the country. Hi, thanks for being with us. First, a word of background. What happened over the last few years to give so much momentum to the separatists? Because a lot of observers date it back to a huge protest in 2010. That means it's only been for the last 3 or 4 years, 5 years now, I guess, that they've had major momentum.
Yep. Hello. First of all, thanks for the invitation. Well, I think there's a historical chronology which explains why we are in the point we are right now. The thing is that Catalonians approved, let's say, a constitution for our region in 2006, and then the Spanish government, or the EPP, who was then in the opposition, started a campaign in order to put this constitution that we approved into the Constitutional Court, and then they, let's say, cut some part which are symbolic for Catalans, like that we are a nation, that we wanted competences in justice and so on. So it was a try in order to, let's say, federalize a bit the way in which Catalonia is into Spain. But of course, the problem is that there was a clash between the political legitimacy of the Catalan people and the, let's say, judicial or juridical or legal legitimacy of the Spanish state. And then started in big demonstrations some years later, because we tried again with a new offer in order to have a fiscal pact. But then again, the Spanish government rejected in order to have a new system of financing for Catalonia. And this mixed with a context of crisis in which people was feeling that the economy was not going properly, that we were not treated well by the Spanish government, that there were some competences that could have been, let's say, attributed to the Catalans, like languages, or a reform of the Senate, for example, that would have permitted a role for regions, let's say, in the legislative procedures in Spain. All this mixed created a context in which Catalans felt that our political willingness to remain in Spain through a federalization of the Spanish state was not possible. So that's why in 2010, after the rejection of the fiscal pact, then in 2011, 2012, until today, we've seen huge riots in the streets on the 11th of September. So that's be the historical chronology. Then, of course,
So,
there is
Carlos,
also...
let me just make sure I understand. Essentially, what you're telling us is that the leaders of the region of Catalonia for years had been asking for more devolution, as it's called in Britain, for more regional autonomy, and they were never granted it, and therefore they became radicalized and started asking for actual separatism. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. That's perfectly right. The thing is that it's not only a matter of economy. There is one side, because, you know, voters might vote for certain reasons. So you have secessionists who feel simply that Catalans, or who interpret their, let's say, the will to build a nation or to create a state in a more identitary way. And there are others who are more practical. In my case, for example, I used to be a very convinced federalist. I thought that it was possible to have more competences for Catalonia in order to, let's say, be more comfortable in the Spanish state. But the problem is that every try we've tried to explain to the Spanish subsequent governments that there was a problem, we did not hear any proposal. So I would love to hear proposals about blocking competencies in culture, in linguistics, maybe some competencies in the legal system and so on, but nothing worked out. Again, we tried to do a referendum, a legal one, agreed with the Spanish government, but it was not possible either.
So let me just interrupt you and remind our viewers, Carlos, let me just interrupt you for a second, remind our viewers, Catalonia's local leaders wanted a referendum. Finally, there was a vote that took place. It was just under a year ago, November 2014, but it wasn't a referendum because, of course, that was forbidden by the central government in Madrid. So what it was just a popular consultation, as it was called at the time, essentially an entirely symbolic vote. My question to you, Carlos, is, given that the last push for secession is recent and failed, and that was last year, why is there any reason to believe that it could succeed now?
Well, I think I mean, we don't know, of course, if it could succeed or not. But I think that all independence processes, like also in the Baltics or in the countries of the East, European leaders and all, let's say, the establishment who was governing that time did not believe that it will happen. And all of them declared that this was not possible, that they will not support certain independence of certain countries in the bloc of the East, or also in the Baltic countries. And then, of course, the people who want to get independence in a democratic way here in Catalonia, through riots, through voting to secessionist parties, are trying, let's say, to send a political message that this is what we want. But the problem is that in front of us, we have a bloc in which they use juridical arguments to, let's say, hide their unwillingness to solve a political problem. So the thing is that you can always put the legal system as a barrel, but then you will have de facto a problem in which you will have, like the SNP in the UK, for example. Look at what happened in Scotland. Of course, they tried, Cameron allowed to do a referendum. He said that he will give more devolution to the Scottish, but they did not saw that this was giving its results, and almost all Scottish voted for the SNP again in the elections of the UK. So at the end, if they put only, let's say, the legal system as the only barrel to a political problem, at the end this will turn de facto into a problem, and Catalan leaders will declare independence unilaterally. The European Union should intervene or press Mr. Rajoy in order to do an offer, or to see how we will, let's say, divide the actives from the state, so Catalonia will get a part of its debt and so on. So what I don't understand is that there has not been an offer in order to federalize Spain, and this is the only way we have is go for independence.
All right, Carlos Mascarell Vilar, thank you very much for breaking this down for us, giving us some context. This is something